Well, good morning, everybody. Rob Hogg, State Senator, Senate District 33 in Cedar Rapids, and I want to welcome you today to our press conference on America's Clean Car Standards. I'm going to have a few remarks, and I'll introduce the other people here to speak. Thank you to the members of the public who have come, and just for members of the media, you have some people here in the audience who own electric and high-efficiency vehicles, so if you want to talk to them at the end, you should feel free to do that. Can everybody hear okay? I'm looking at the members of the media. Everything okay? All right. Well, very happy to be here today and proud to stand alongside these other community leaders to oppose yet another backwards action by the United States Environmental Protection Agency in the Trump administration for Iowa. We've had a series of bad moves by the Environmental Protection Agency, and now they are proposing to roll back America's Clean Car Standards, including the EPA's proposal to take away the authority of states under the Clean Air Act to adopt stronger tailpipe pollution standards than those set by the federal government. The transportation sector remains one of the largest sources of carbon pollution that drives the climate crisis. Clean car standards provide better gas mileage, which reduces carbon pollution and saves consumers money, creates jobs, and improves our health. According to the Union of Concerned Scientists, the clean car standards have already saved Iowans $340 million in lower fuel costs since they were first adopted. And if the current standards stay in place, Iowa families are expected to save $2,450 a year by 2030 in reduced fuel and transportation costs. That's a big win for consumers. Clean car standards also help create clean energy jobs, such as the jobs at Davenport's Arconic aluminum plant, and they help other parts of our economy as consumers spend less money on gasoline at the gas pump. Nationwide, clean car technology is responsible for more than 280,000 jobs, and clean car technology is important for America's economic competitiveness. We need Iowa's congressional delegation, including Senator Joni Ernst, to stand up in favor of clean car technology and the ability of states to go beyond minimum federal standards. Unfortunately, Senator Ernst has been silent so far on this issue, and I will just say that I believe her failure to speak up for state authority is particularly troubling. She says she believes in government closer to the people, but in this case, the Trump administration is proposing to take away state authority. Currently, 14 states in the District of Columbia already use this authority to address harmful tailpipe pollution from cars and trucks. Minnesota just announced a couple weeks ago its intent to become a clean car state. I believe Iowa should go next, but if the Trump administration's proposal goes through, Iowa won't have that opportunity. Senator Ernst and the rest of Iowa's congressional delegation should speak up in favor of the clean car standards. They are important for our economy, our health, and our safety today and in the future. With that will conclude my remarks, and I'd like to introduce Linn County Supervisor Brent Oleson. Thank you, Brent. Thank you.
So I was elected in 2008 after the fourth largest natural disaster in the United States had taken place here in Cedar Rapids in Linn County, the flood of the Cedar River, which wiped out our downtown, crucial infrastructure, and displaced thousands of residents and businesses. We had several once-in-500-year flood scares since then. We've seen chronic flooding all over the Midwest. Dramatic changes in weather patterns are here, and climate change is something we must deal with on all levels of society. Scientists know this, climatologists know this, our farmers know this, and our children know this. And as a public servant, I know this. I wish all public servants knew this and took it seriously. Our future depends on the decisions we make today at every level of policy making, and that's why I'm here today. We in Iowa and Linn County strongly oppose the Trump administration and EPA Administrator Andrew Wheeler's proposed rollback of clean car standards. We want our Iowa Senator Joni Ernst to voice her opposition to this dangerous attack on the Clean Air Act, which rolls back clean car standards. It rolls back Iowa's and other states' authority to protect their citizens from tailpipe pollution. The clean car standards are one of the most effective policies we have on the books to combat climate change, which makes extreme weather events like intense heat waves, droughts, and flooding more frequent and intense. The Clean Air Act establishes the authority of the states to adopt stronger clean car standards than those set by the federal government to protect the health of their residents. The Trump administration's reckless rollback would effectively strip all states with pollution problems of their Clean Air Act established authority to control vehicle pollution within their own borders now and into the future. By failing to speak out against President Trump's dangerous and costly rollback of the clean car standards and the attack on state authority, Senator Ernst is putting corporate polluters over Iowans' health and economy. The majority of Iowans want and need cleaner cars, and Senator Ernst should listen to them and oppose this rollback. Established under the Clean Air Act, Senator Ernst should protect Iowa's authority to adopt stronger tailpipe pollution standards than those set by the federal government and oppose this reckless rollback of all states' authority and the clean car standards. Iowans and Americans across the country have made it clear that they want bold solutions to address the climate crisis. While the Trump administration's attack states' authority to protect their constituents from harmful tailpipe pollution that's contributing to climate change, Senator Ernst is failing to speak on behalf of her constituents. Iowans want to clean up the air, protect the public health, and save money at the pump. States must be allowed to manage vehicle pollution as the Clean Air Act intended. Senator Ernst must stand up to the Trump administration by supporting state authority and common sense vehicle pollution standards that protect each state's health and economy. I, for one, don't want our Iowa senators and congresspersons going to Washington, D.C. and continually getting hoodwinked by the Trump administration and the EPA, which is now in the pockets of oil state special interests. We need our Iowa senators and congresspeople, especially Senator Joni Ernst, who is very close to President Trump and has the ability to do something on this issue, to stand up to these corporate polluters and EPA administrators on behalf of Iowans and support Iowa's ability as a state to set common sense vehicle pollution standards to protect Iowa's health, our economy, and allow us to do our part to combat climate change at every level of government.
Thank you. Thank you, Supervisor Oleson. Now I'd like to introduce Mike Carberry with the Iowa Farmers Union. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you. It's great to be here. And I'm a former Johnson County Supervisor, but I grew up in Newhall, Iowa, just west of here in Benton County, where my dad was a large animal veterinarian. And I'm a fifth generation from a fifth generation farming family. My uncle and aunt still farm, and so do my cousins. Agriculture is Iowa's most important industry. Iowa farmers are the most vital frontline responders in the age of increasing extreme weather events and a growing climate emergency. But farmers are not just victims of climate change. They're essential components of the solution. The past year has been the wettest in Iowa's history since we've kept records in 1895. From June of 2018 through May of 19, Iowa farmland was hammered with over 51 inches of rain, 16 more inches than normal. Floods this spring have damaged over 1 million acres of farmland, with concerns that much of the farmland may be unfarmable for years. Farmers are under increasing pressure to prepare and plant their fields in shorter windows of acceptable weather and soil conditions due to excessive rainfall events. Farmers are experiencing more frequent droughts under volatile climate conditions. Harvests have become more troublesome and costly. Higher volatile weather conditions contribute to already disturbing erosion trends and impair farmers' efforts to improve soil quality and soil health and profitability. These clean car standards that have been mentioned would increase the production and sales of climate-smart vehicles and light trucks. I myself drive a Chevy Volt. But there is no silver bullet to address climate emergency, but there is silver buckshot. And this is just one of those silver buckshots. The United States should transition to a clean energy economy by 2050 and require zero carbon pollution. Initiatives should provide opportunities for farmers to utilize clean, smart farming methods and vehicles, methods that involve proven conservation methods and also regenerative agricultural innovations. In addition to these important clean car standards we are discussing today, the efforts to promote clean energy extend to curbing carbon pollution. Unfortunately, Iowa senators have indicated they favor the so-called Affordable Clean Energy Rule, which would extend the lives of dirty coal plants, which do nothing to curb the carbon pollution that is driving the climate change crisis and slow Iowa's transition to cleaner sources of energy. From record flooding to devastating droughts and rising temperatures, communities across Iowa are feeling the impacts of climate change as a result of increased carbon pollution. Severe flooding this past March caused $2 billion in damage and hampered the livelihood of hundreds of farmers across this state. Flood warnings are becoming all too common for families throughout the year. From 1990 to 2018, Iowa had 43 presidentially declared disasters. With the impacts of climate crisis front and center, it would make sense for our senators, Grassley and Ernst, to meet this challenge head on and to protect the Iowans they represent. After all, support of stronger carbon pollution limits and clean car standards and climate action is growing across all age groups, all religions, and all political persuasions. This support has transitioned our economic growth in the state of Iowa. We now have 20,000 energy efficiency jobs, nearly 3,000 energy efficiency businesses, over 800 solar jobs in over 60 solar businesses across the state, and we have 10,000 wind energy jobs, and I also sit on the board of the Iowa Wind Energy Association. Senators Ernst and Grassley should be taking action that supports clean cars, Iowa's growing clean energy economy, and the jobs that come with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Now I would like to introduce from Iowa Physicians for Social Responsibility, Dr. Maureen McCue.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you, Dr. McCue.
Thank you all for being here. I think this is a vitally important consideration. As a mother, as a grandmother, a physician, and a global health professional, I'm really concerned about the Trump administration's efforts to roll back too many environmental protections, but especially the clean car standards, and especially that he's being supported by Senator Ernst. Rolling back clean car standards that reduces pollution and global warming greenhouse gases at this particular juncture in history makes absolutely no sense. Iowans, all of us, deserve clean air. Rolling back fuel efficiency standards allows them to make dirtier cars that pollute and harm our health directly. Pollutants from vehicle exhaust have been linked to adverse effects on nearly every organ system in the body, including bringing about premature death. And this is especially from breathing in the fine particulate matter and the ground level ozone that comes out of those tailpipes. They both induce well understood, extensively documented human health consequences. Particulate matter, fine particulate, is less than 1/10 of the diameter of a human hair. You can sometimes see it in some soot, but even smaller particles are dangerous to human health because they penetrate deep into the lungs and then into the circulatory system. And that's how they bring about the cancer effects. The volatile organic chemicals that come out react with nitrogen oxides in the presence of sunlight and form ground level ozone. I know a lot of people are confused about ozone because it's good when it's in the higher atmosphere, but at ground level it's a very powerful irritant to the lungs. And then when they come together, the VOCs include all those toxic compounds that are linked to different kinds of cancers. Nitrogen oxides, which is also a powerful greenhouse gas, causes lung irritation, weakens the body's immune systems. The list just goes on. Carbon monoxide, we all know, is a frightening compound. Sulfur dioxide, other greenhouse gases are all directly harmful pollutants. And of course, there are additional pollutants that are associated with the refining and distribution of fuels, and then the manufacture and disposal of the vehicle. So who is vulnerable? Who's at risk? These are our unborn, newborns, children, the elderly, people that suffer from respiratory and cardiovascular diseases, and those that are suffering from other impacts of poor ambient air quality. People with chronic illnesses, particularly those living close to our highways and roadways. We do have a couple of big interstates. All suffer from that. Over 3,000 children and 15,000 adults right here in Linn County suffer from asthma. And if any of you know any of those people, this is a really frightening illness. Over 42,000 children and 220,000 adults suffer from asthma across Iowa, as far as we know. Over 26 million Americans, including 6 million children, suffer from asthma across the country. It's induced by obviously many factors besides cars, but vehicle pollution causes and exacerbates existing asthma, as can all the other factors that are related to our increasingly frequent extreme weather. We could go have a whole conversation about health effects of climate change. But so, in other words, clean car standards provide substantial health benefits, and we shouldn't be rolling back the safeguards that are protecting the health of our communities, of your children, of the elders, and the frail folks within your families and communities. And as we said, transportation is the largest source of climate change pollution in the U.S. The rollback is slated to occur even as we're hearing from all of our elected officials about the crisis in affording health care, in affording disaster response. Clean car standards are being rolled back when we can't afford either the health effects or those brought on by our changing climate. We can't slash climate pollution from cars and trucks fast enough. You don't even need a driver's license to know that. Children and young people around the world are striking by the millions to demand climate action. And as I appreciate Greta Thunberg's comment, where are the adults in this picture? Weakening the clean car standards is an affront to the millions of young people across the world demanding a healthier environment and solutions to climate change. We can't let the Trump administration get away with this dangerous rollback. Time to move forward into a healthier future.
Yep. Thank you, Dr. McCue. Well, that concludes our prepared remarks, and let me start to see if any members of the media have questions for the group. And I believe all of us have a little time to be available individually with the news media, but does anybody have a question for the group of us? Anything? Jason? Robin?
Yes, Senator, thank you for asking for questions. Clean air is just one of the pollution considerations that we have in Iowa. And ethanol is a contributor, and we raise a lot of corn, and most of our corn goes either to ethanol or to feed animals. And it's industrialization of agriculture that is overtaking us here. And some officials don't recognize that, or don't acknowledge it, or don't acknowledge it fully, and have fairly parochial views about what needs to be done. I wonder, since this is a multifaceted issue, how to kind of get hold of the tentacles of it. And I wonder what thoughts you all may have about addressing the issues raised by industrial agriculture here in Iowa.
Sure, and I'll see if other members want to address that. But let me begin by saying, regardless of what your views on renewable fuels are, this issue about clean car standards and the ability of states to control harmful tailpipe pollution, that is in some ways well, it is directly separate from the issue of the renewable fuels. So I don't want to lose the focus on the fact that we want more fuel-efficient cars, regardless of what fuel is being burned in those vehicles. And today's really about the clean car standards, not the renewable fuels issue. I have my views on it. I'm sure other people have their views on it. Does anybody else want to address that right now?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
You were asking about industrial agriculture, and I will say that the Iowa Farmers Union really supports regenerative agriculture. We need to start farming like our grandfathers used to farm and our grandmothers. By diversification, we need to increase the diversification. We used to farm maybe 5 crops in rotation, and now we're down to 2. We used to put most of our eggs, meat, and protein were grown out on the pasture. They're now grown in confinements. If you put animals back on pasture, they poop on pasture, their hooves turn over that, the bugs start working on and breaking down that manure, and it builds the soil health. Right now our health, the soil health is horrible. We've been treating our soil like dirt, and we need to stop doing that. We need to rebuild the health of the soil so it can be a carbon sink again, so it can sequester carbon. The IPCC came out in a report in August that said that the production of food is a major contributor of production and distribution of food. The entire food cycle is a major contributor to carbon, but there is hope that if we start farming better, that we can start sequestering carbon again. So the Iowa Farmers Union is a big pusher of regenerative agriculture, and sometimes referred to as sustainable agriculture. So we need to do better than we're doing currently, and we support any efforts to do that. And what it takes, though, is that it takes money. So the Farm Bill we have to start putting in the Farm Bill the subsidies to farm better, for cover crops, for no-till, for some of these other things, for growing vegetables. Because people can tell you they value something, but then again, you can look at their budget and say, well, I can tell by your budget what you value. We need to put into the Farm Bill what we value as far as agriculture and moving to a more sustainable model.
Let me just add, there are a lot of solutions to climate change. There are a lot of agricultural solutions to climate change. Today, the focus is on the clean car standards.
Yes, a follow-up then, Senator. Some people think that having fewer cars on the road would help with the kind of pollution that you're addressing, and that mass transit and high-speed rail would also be effective means of reducing or cleaning up our air, and that somehow mitigating the effects of air travel would also help clean up our air. So I wonder what thoughts you may have about that, beyond just dealing with automobiles and how we get cheaper gas and so on.
There's no well, again, the focus today is on the clean car standards and the need to stop the EPA's proposed rollback of those standards and to take away the state authority as the Trump administration has proposed. That is the focus today. Of course, there are literally hundreds of solutions to climate change, and I personally encourage people to obviously have things personally you want to do with your carbon footprint to reduce it. I haven't flown since 2002. That's a personal choice I've made. What we need is public policy to encourage all of the solutions. Here today, the focus is on the clean car standards, and there will be no way of addressing the climate crisis without clean car standards. Clean car standards are a necessary component of dealing with it, and that's why we need Senator Joni Ernst to speak up for the clean car standards and for state authority. Any other people? Anything else?
I was just going to reinforce the idea of the silver buckshot, and clearly we all have choices out there, but all those choices aren't there equally for everybody. I do drive an electric hybrid, and I know it's a whole lot more costly, and that's part of the picture, but we have to address all these things simultaneously, in a sense. I'm afraid to ride a bicycle, and I live out in the country, so bicycle and rapid transit or mass transit aren't going to work for me anytime in the foreseeable future. So I do need a car, as I know a number of people do. And so I do feel that these are important considerations. Not everybody is served by bicycles and mass transit. Not everybody can afford the best electric vehicles out there. And so cars will continue to be a part of the choice within the transportation of most people in this country. And so we can clean it up. We know we can make much cleaner cars. All you have to do is spend a little bit of time in Europe and realize, none of those cars get the kind of mileage that our cars get. It's just an embarrassment to be an American sometimes in other parts of the world where these problems have been solved and continue to improve. So I really do feel that it is very important to address the pollution, the known pollutants that we can address, and particularly to protect the health of our current family members, community members, and the future.
Obviously, clean cars save consumers a lot of money. And I'll tell you what, there are a lot of Iowans who are struggling financially because they're spending way too much money on gasoline, and clean car standards is part of the solution to that problem. Anybody else from the news media have a question?
I have a follow-up.
Did you have a question?
I was just going to say I can recognize individually.
Okay. One last, Robin, what's the...
There was a guy in the back.
Oh, Scott?
Are there any lawsuits to counter this executive action?
I don't know. Is Ben in here? Yes. Yeah. Ben, do you know what the status on the lawsuits? What?
I'm not sure.
Yeah. I'm not sure about that. I'm sure it will be challenged. I don't know where in the process it is, and I apologize for that. All right. Well, thank you all for being here. And yes, Jan.
This is basically a nonpartisan issue. It's more of a states' rights issue. Is there any grassroots feeling on this? I mean, Ernst is not in our camp, but how about other Republicans that really believe in strong states' rights issue? I mean, to me, that's part of it. It's a states' rights issue versus the government coming in and putting edicts on it.
Clearly, I think all Iowans should want to retain the right for the state of Iowa, if it chooses, to adopt clean car standards above the federal minimum standards. If that's what Iowans want to do to help consumers and to protect our health from dangerous tailpipe emissions. So I would hope that we'd have strong bipartisan support for it, and I hope that Senator Ernst will be a leader to make sure that Iowa has the right to protect our citizens and to help save our consumers money. So thank you, Jan, for that observation. Well, with that, we will conclude, and thank you all for being here today.
Tell me about today's meeting.
Yeah, well, today we're really asking Iowa's congressional delegation, including Senator Joni Ernst, to stand up for Iowa's future by standing up for America's clean car standards and the technology that saves Iowans money at the pump and helps clean up tailpipe emissions so we have less pollution and less climate change.
And the Trump administration is rolling back regulations from the Obama administration, correct? That happened in 2012, correct?
Yes, that's what's happening. The Trump administration has proposed two things. One is just to roll back the clean car standards generally, and more specifically to take away the authority of states to go beyond the federal minimum standards. And there are already 14 states in the country that use higher standards. Minnesota has proposed to be the 15th state. I think Iowa should be able to do that. So this is taking away states' authority to go beyond federal minimum standards. And of course, states should be able to do that. And of course, we want stronger clean car standards because it protects public health, saves consumers money, helps us deal with climate change.
What do you fear would happen if if the rollback goes through?
Well, there are two big fears I have. Number one is that Americans will have to spend a lot more money and waste a lot more money on gasoline. We'll have another generation of dirty vehicles. And beyond that, I'm concerned it will really help hurt American automakers, because I'm afraid we're going to lose the industries for the global market. The rest of the countries in the world are going in a different direction, and in the United States here we're going backwards, and that's the wrong direction for the United States. We should be out leading this effort, not falling behind.
What's the status of this rollback? Because I know it was proposed, but it hasn't gone through yet.
Yeah, well, it last month or earlier this month, a couple weeks ago, it took a big step forward, which was the actual proposed rule. And so now there's a 30-day comment period, and then once that 30-day comment period is, the rule will be available to be adopted formally and then go into effect. And so unfortunately it's taken this big step forward, and right now is the time we need Iowa's congressional delegation, especially Senator Ernst, because she's so close to President Trump, to stand up and say, don't do this.
So what's next for you in your fight against the clean car regulation?
Well, I think we just keep educating the public and asking people to speak up. And remember, people can do things on their own, and we want people to do things on their own. Buy more fuel-efficient cars. That's a good thing to do, but we've got to get the public policy right. We've got to get people to speak up for clean cars for everyone, because that's the way you get the full benefits of protecting the environment, protecting public health, and making sure we keep fuel costs down for everyone.
What's the relationship
Just
this rollback to the production of electric cars and so on?
I'll get to that. I just want to make sure. Did you have any?
No, I was asking if you had anything else.
Okay, very good. So on the relationship between electric cars, the clean car standards don't require electric cars, but the clean car standards do encourage electric car manufacturing and electric vehicles, because they are one of the ways that the companies can meet the standards for clean cars.
With more clean cars, will we not put pressure on the grid? And Alliant is still running coal-fired plants. So.
Well, okay, so this is a moment of consumer education. Electric vehicles are so efficient that even if you are getting your electricity from coal burning, it's still superior to burning a gasoline-powered car. So that's a step forward. But we have people in this room today here who own electric vehicles and own solar panels to generate their own electricity. And it makes the transition to a 100% renewable energy future much easier if people have electric vehicles. Okay, thank you. Thanks for your questions. I'll let you, Phil, get me.
We're trying, and we're very close to getting the Sunrise House.
Okay, if this rollback is accomplished as projected, what are the implications that you foresee for public health?
As the standards have gone into place, we've had greater fuel efficiency, which means we're using less fuel. And out of tailpipes come a whole slew of well-known pollutants that are harmful to health of all organs. Mostly we think respiratory, but it's also cardiovascular, it's also premature death and multiple cancers and so on, because there's such a toxic stew that comes out of a tailpipe. And the thing that people think most of is asthma, and unfortunately asthma is also going up because of climate change. And so we have the intersection between the toxic impacts of what's coming out of the cars along with the toxic impacts on the climate, and they both have significant health implications. And so it's the combination of the two. You don't want to be spewing out more greenhouse gases and toxic pollutants. At the same time, climate change itself is impacting the very same vulnerable people, fetuses, newborns, children, elders, people with chronic diseases. It's like a double whammy, and it makes no sense. The more we know about what is happening to our climate, the more we know about what impacts our health. And the more costly it is to attend to all of these health effects, to attend to climate change effects, the less sense it makes. It's really quite a bizarre situation to roll back these protections.
Okay. Well, I need to talk to Mike. I want to get Mike on some ag issues.
It's right there.
Okay. Mike, what I want to ask you is if the clean car standards would apply to farm equipment.
Well, the quick answer is no. But farm equipment mostly runs on diesel, and it would not be covered in this. But light trucks and SUVs are covered by the clean car standards, and a lot of those are used now on in farming. Your bigger trucks, you know, like the Ford F-150 or something like that, that's a full-size pickup. Those are not covered in this, but the light trucks like that are less than that, you know, are covered, and we're seeing a lot more of those used out in the farm these days, especially for farmers that are growing vegetables. They don't need a full-size truck. They can get by with just one of the smaller ones, which are much more fuel efficient. But obviously we need to have more efficient vehicles all across the sector. So hopefully we can maintain these clean car standards, and then maybe address with some other policy farm equipment, heavy farm equipment.
Compare what gasoline and diesel. How do they? What are their relative contributions to air quality?
Well, diesel is not good. Diesel is more particulate matter. It's just a dirtier fuel, and you know, that's where Volkswagen got into trouble, saying that they had clean diesel engines and they were cheating, and so diesel is a fuel that's not used in a lot of American vehicles, which is probably a good thing because it's a dirtier fuel. But we mostly are using gasoline and then ethanol, which they claim is cleaner, which I think science has not proven that ethanol is a cleaner fuel, contrary to what the ag industry and the biofuels industry would tell us.
So with the large-scale farming we have, would it be important to clean up farm fuel?
Yes. I mean, anything we can do. I mean, with all the flooding, the drought, and all the other problems we're having with extreme weather, farming is in real trouble, and we're going to have to do everything that we possibly can. I'll go back to my no silver bullet statement, that there is no silver bullet to address climate change, but there may be silver buckshot. That's a quote from Bill McKibben. And we need to do everything that we can, including clean up the cars. We need sustainable and regenerative and organic agriculture. We need to get rid of CAFOs. We need to put animals back on pasture. So there's many different ways that we can farm that would help address climate change, including making the combines and them run on cleaner fuel or be more efficient. We have the technology to do it. It's just we don't have the political will.
Would it be possible to run farm equipment on electric engines, electrically powered engines?
I believe it would. One of the things is because you're running them for a number of hours, and then they're coming back to basically the machine shed where they could be recharged. It's not like you're driving them across country. They're staying within a couple miles of their home base. And buses, we're now seeing electric buses that'll be out and drive 8 hours, a full shift, maybe even longer, driving all over large cities, constantly on the move. And so, you know, an 8-hour day you could at least do that on a tractor or a combine. Now, sometimes, you know, when harvest season is around, you're running some of these equipment in shifts, and you'll be running them possibly 24 hours. I'm not sure if we're quite there yet on battery technology, And of course, that's one of the holy grails of renewable energy and climate change is battery storage, energy storage. If the sun doesn't shine all the time and the wind doesn't blow all the time. So we need better energy storage technology. We need to have a commitment like the Apollo commitment to put a man on the moon. We need to have the commitment to energy storage. It has to be one of our major priorities to address climate change and the climate emergency.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
You bet.